We'll take them after our discussant's intervention. We're very lucky to have Christelle Kwizera, the founder and managing director of Water Access Rwanda, with us. She's going to talk about her organization's experience with carbon credits. She's an award-winning social entrepreneur and activist with a background as a mechanical engineer. She founded Water Access Rwanda with the vision to provide safe water. The company now provides water to 126,000 daily users. This includes borehole-fed water systems and rain-to-tap systems. And she's also pursuing a master's degree in climate change finance and investment. And she's very keen to explore how climate finance can be further mobilized to support her work. Christelle, over to you.
Thank you. Very nice to see many familiar faces. I'll jump right into it and skim over some of the details. We can discuss more in the discussion. But basically, a little bit of brief about Water Access Rwanda. Sorry, one second. This is not in order. But the company has a vision to deliver safe water at the turn of a tap. So we design systems to be affordable, but also convenient for users. I said we're reaching 126,000 users. This number is growing every day. And we have an ambition to be reaching 400,000 users over the next 2 years. So we're kind of in the growing phase of scaling our different initiatives right now. We have 4 different solutions. So we have the borehole-fed water mini-grids that we call Inuma. We have Amazi, which is a rain-to-tap water system. And then we do Hira, which is on-site boreholes. And this is usually for farmers, organizations, agribusinesses, and different people who need a reliable groundwater source. And then we have Voma, which is where we do a lot of the partnerships to finance all our different technologies. And this is where the carbon credit really plays out in terms of subsidizing users and making sure that our technology can reach a larger user base that might not usually afford to pay the cost of water under our different initiatives. We see a lot of impact, but I'm sure that's similar for a lot of people on the call, so I'll skip over this. But talk a little bit about our revenue model. So with Inuma, we raise initial investment and collect usage fees from the users and also charge for a connection for platform access. And that's very cheap for the users, but the initial investment is quite heavy. And we need a model that can recoup investment for our investors. So carbon credits are a key part of that investment, as I touched on. Showing additionality is very important for carbon projects. So what our model shows is that with just user payments, there is kind of a gap in making the project financially attractive. So with carbon credits, we can make it more financially attractive and attract way more investment. With our Mazi system, there's kind of an upfront cost to set up the system, which includes a tank and the filter and first flush diverters from the roof collection. And actually for this one, we've been able to mobilize climate adaptation financing. So one thing I can touch on here is that climate mitigation is where the carbon credits come in.
I think we've lost Christelle. Christelle, if you can hear us, maybe you can remove your camera. And
quite pricey. Yeah, and
okay. You're back.
Oh, was I lost?
Yeah, a little bit. So if you want to remove your camera, we might be able to hear you better, if that's okay with you.
All right.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. I think I was just talking about how within the water sector, a lot of projects are more feasible to be financed with climate adaptation finance. And that's something we've been able to secure. And I think that's a further conversation that people on this call might be interested in. But right now, climate mitigation finance, which is where the carbon credits come in, has more money, but climate adaptation is more related to water than the mitigation aspects. All right, so I'll give a short overview of the projects we have in the company right now. So in 2017, we started Water for Climate. We were more of a service provider. So this project has a carbon project developer. It already had a buyer who invested in all of the infrastructure, and it included a mixture of technologies. Under this project, we see between 0.8 to 1.5 tons per user per year. So this is a key number to keep in mind when you're developing the baseline, is to really estimate how much tons you get per user, because it can vary a lot depending on your technology and what baseline you're looking at. In 2020, we registered Enuma Safe Water, and this one is very similar with Water for Climate, but the rules changed. That's the thing to keep in mind with the methodologies. They change often and are updated often. So when you register a project, things might not look the same, even if you're looking at the same kind of communities. So under Enuma Safe Water, we're also able to generate between 0.8 and 1.2 tons, credits per user per year. And then we started a school project last year. It started in 2021, but the carbon project is now happening. And for this one, because students are only at school for 190 days, their consumption of water at school is much lower than community users. For this one, the credits per user per year are quite lower compared to our other projects. So that's between 0.14 and 0.2 tons per user per year. And what we do for all these projects is we do the initial setup, we do ongoing water quality testing, wash trainings, and preventive maintenance. So we visit every system every month, repair what needs to be repaired, and whatever is scheduled to be broken. So we kind of take that preventive approach, which this is important to maximize the uptime of the water system, which affects how much credit you can earn. We also do a lot of monitoring, and we feel like since we started the carbon projects, it's actually enhanced how much we monitor and work with our communities, especially the annual usage monitoring surveys. We do a water consumption field test where we actually track visiting a user every day of the week to see how they use the water, not just how much water they get from our water points, but how they're using it and how much they're using it. So I feel like these were aspects that were enhanced in our monitoring from the carbon project. Now, for people thinking about this or already doing this, there's a few numbers that can really affect your earnings per user. I've heard from a lot of other projects that they're either earning 0.2 tons or 0.4 tons per user. And there's a few ways you can enhance that. One is getting a really good baseline. As Ty mentioned, that's very important because once you register your baseline, it's very hard to update it. And what's very important at baseline is to, again, have an accurate measure of what the boiling rates are. So who within your target beneficiary is already boiling water. And if you're implementing in an LDC or in Africa specifically, you have the chance to use suppressed demand. So this is a mechanism that was enacted because the boiling rates in Africa were very low, I think around 33% of the population, but then the majority of the populations were consuming unsafe water. So with suppressed demand, you can make the case that if, you ask this through surveys, but you make the case that people who are currently not boiling water would boil if they were purifying their water. And this kind of enhances what percent of your population is directly earning your carbon credits. The other thing to keep in mind is how much is emitted per liter that is consumed. So I've seen baselines really vary, and I'm doing my dissertation in this to see what different projects report. But I've seen, the standard rate is 0.004 tons per liter. And I've seen projects that go as high as 0.8, 0.7, 0.007. So it's like a few factors out. But this can really change how much you earn per user per year, because if they're consuming the same amount of liters, but what you measured as the emission per liter is very low. A project that has a higher emission per liter will still earn more carbon credits than you can earn. And you can enhance this by doing a water boiling test. So you can use standard measures that are provided by the different standards, like use the default values, or you can do your own assessments to actually see how much is emitted. And there is guidelines on how to do this. The other number that really matters is the person days. So these are how many users with how many liters and how many days they had access to your technology. So in the case for the schools, for example, because of holidays and weekends where students are not at school, the person days number is quite low compared to the community where you're assuming a full year access to your technology and that you will keep it working. So last year we had a perfect year where we didn't have any downtime on any of our water points under Water for Climate. And this really enhanced how much credit we were able to report. The other thing is you have to keep the water points safe. So we do water quality monitoring every month. And once you've tested your water quality and it's safe, let's say in January, and you return in February for your other test, and you find that the water point has been contaminated, because you can't prove when the water point was contaminated, you basically lose the period between your last negative test and your current positive test. And it's very important that, which should be standard practice for water providers, but it's very important that when you notice a positive E. coli result, which shows your water is unsafe, that you fix that right away and retest right away so that you don't lose many days in your accounting.
Thank you.
And then the other...
Sorry, Christelle. Yeah, just if you could wrap up quickly, that would be good. We still have another couple of discussions, and I think if everyone on the webinar is okay with this, we will need to extend a little bit the timing of the webinar to allow for Q&A at the end, as we have quite a lot of questions coming through the chat box, and we would still like to hear from John and Hido. Is that okay?
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
The last number is how much liters per day per person. So this can be limited by technology, but there's also an upper limit you can't go over depending on the standard. The last thing I wanted to just touch on very quickly is I'm doing a monitoring of which projects are currently registered in Sub-Saharan Africa on gold standard. And I can share these slides if people want to look at this more. But you can see that a lot of new projects are being listed. If you go by the estimated mitigation outcome, Kenya is quite huge. Nigeria is coming up, in Tanzania and Benin, and Uganda. Uganda and Kenya are quite huge. So East Africa, by the projects on gold standard, has, in terms of size of annual estimated mitigation outcome, is quite high. And then by companies, CO2 balance and impact carbon are leading in terms of the both number of active projects, but also the amount of annual estimated mitigation outcome. This is just part of my dissertation, and I hope to produce at the end of it a good mapping that can be useful for other water sector providers to see what's already out there, where the gaps and opportunities are. Thank you.
Super. Thank you so